This is the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast.
Oh no! We suck again!
I'm getting confused. What game are you calling?
I'm calling both games!
It is caught by Kelsey! Touchdown! Kansas City!
I need 3 of those things, baby! We ain't done yet! We ain't done yet! You like that? You like that? I like that!
How's it going, Ruckus and The Menace sports fam? You know what time it is. It's time for the Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast, episode number 120. I'm Spence the Menace.
And I am Ruckus, always causing a ruckus.
And having delayed reactions. On this episode of the Ruckus
I mean, you're kind of delayed on me too,
podcast,
to be honest. Anyways.
Interruption pardoned for only so long. We will kick this off right away with the good, the bad, and the ugly, our Eastwood segment. We have updates involving the Fall Classic and a recap of Week 8 of the NFL season. We'll get right to it with the film room as somebody has just broken 100 on the film room board.
Go off.
And we will conclude it off with the stud and dud of the week. Man, oh man. This has been quite a fun one. And we're going to get right to it with our Eastwood segment. The good, the bad, the ugly, and that tumbleweed rolling across.
All right now. So, Spence, what is good in sports this week?
I'm going to take you back to the 1990s.
Take them back to the 90s. Sorry.
I knew where you were going with that. Yeah, I knew where you were going. Wait, which reference were you going with there?
It was the Logic reference. I think
Yep,
it was.
yep, that was Young Jesus. Yep, it was Young Jesus. Yep. I knew which one you were doing as soon as you did it. But when I was a kid, a certain position in the NFL was not as heralded for having good statistical pieces, as they were more so smaller offensive linemen that were more used for blocking for the running game. Over time, these players were eventually, and some of them still throughout the 90s and 2000s, eventually found their way to becoming effective pass catchers. And on Sunday, it was National Tight Ends Day. And there were tight ends that played well and especially had really good ball out games for those fortunate fantasy football owners on National Tight Ends Day. And one of the notable ones was the founder and one of the spearheaders of Tight End University, George Kittle.
And he had his famous F the Cowboys t-shirt underneath his jersey that he was so tempted to unravel at the end of the game when he was about to get interviewed. But he was wondering if he would want to do the fine this time or not. Because last time, it was in the end zone.
And Kittle is one of my favorites. And if you have not watched the receiver documentary of just kind of how George Kittle interacts and does different things, and also Claire does a really good job with him, and kind of also doing like a lot of the pepping him up and and everything as well. George Kittle is definitely, he has become one of those players that you cannot help but enjoy the energy that he brings.
That's for sure. His mental energy is just something of a freaking nature compared to like Travis Kelce, where Kelsey's more of like just like seems like one of those frat boys that drank a whole lot during his days in college, kind of like his older brother Jason. But Kettle is more just like that majestic guy that would like be riding on a unicorn or like a horse of some kind, holding like an American flag or something next to him.
Now, don't get me wrong. I can get with the energy of Travis Kelce as well. But I will say this: Kittle's that one person that carries a lot of that energy, and he is more so a man of the people.
Niner Nation,
like,
but yeah.
People, like, I'm gonna say, like, people who like fan of the fan of professional wrestling, fan of like a big, like, he's kind of got like those. He's a football player, but he also has like a little bit of that nerd, like a little bit of like a nerdy energy to him. Not quite to the degree involving anime like Jamal Williams, but George Kittle is just a people. It's like Travis Kelce. I can get with him because he's good at being an NFL tight end and podcasting along with his brother. They are highly entertaining, especially together.
Mm-hmm.
But and both of them also had really good days on National Tight Ends Day. George Kittle with 6 receptions, 128 yards, and a tutty. Travis Kelce with 10 receptions, 90 yards, and a score.
Also,
and Trey McBride.
Travis Kelce had his first touchdown in 13 games. Don't forget about that.
Oh, yeah, it was his first touchdown of the season, and it was something that I don't think a lot of people were expecting. And because I mean, everyone's like so focused on like Travis Kelce, saying like, "Oh, you're doing too much. You're doing too much." It's like, no. The problem is that I think defenses now know that you got a game plan for him, or else he's gonna have games like this. He is a he is a player that you have to game plan for at all times. Because he really is one of the number one pass catchers for Patrick Mahomes. But another tight end that did extremely well on National Tight Ends Day was Trey McBride of the Cardinals, having 9 receptions for 124 yards. But not only did we really have enjoyment from tight ends on National Tight Ends Day this year, Ruckus, who were some of the tight ends that, in talking about National Tight Ends Day, who were some of the tight ends that you enjoyed as you've kind of grown up and gotten into football?
Number 1, a Kansas City Chiefs legend that was later traded to the Falcons. That was a sad day in Chiefs fan history. Tony Gonzalez, dunking on the field goal post every time, and now it's banned because we can't have nice things. And also boo Roger Goodell for that.
But
and Dallas
I'm
Clark,
going to
too.
say this. No, but none of the dunking over the goalpost being banned was actually because of Tony Gonzalez. Jimmy Graham was the one who messed it up. Jimmy Graham was the one who ruined it for everybody.
Well, what was different with Jimmy Graham compared to anyone else that was doing it? Did Jimmy Graham like break his hand or something.
Bent the goalpost. He bent the goal. He bent the goalpost, dunking it.
God damn it, Jimmy Graham! Why you have to ruin? What? This is why we can't have nice things. Another few that I'll mention as far as tight ends go. I didn't really grow up too much with Dallas Clark, but he was definitely a big one for the Indianapolis Colts. Another one would have to be Antonio Gates of the San Diego Chargers. I remember trading for him in Madden all the time with the Kansas City Chiefs, and then just religiously using him as a tight end before Kelsey became a big name. So that and Tony Moeaki of the Chiefs before Kelsey and after Tony Gonzalez. I believe Moeaki was a tight end. I can look that up really quick.
My first one that really sticks out and comes to mind.
Yep, Tony Moeaki.
As far as tight ends go for me, I gotta start with Unk.
Skip.
Shannon Sharp.
I love that man.
From primarily his days with the Denver Broncos and ultimately won a third Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens.
And now the man that advertises Roman flare pills after a unfortunate TikTok or Instagram live where, you know, he was having some good old times, we'll say.
Yeah. But another one that really sticks out for Washington perspectives is Chris Cooley and his Captain Chaos style. Some other ones that really stick out, other ones along with that. I mean, as much as I don't like having to throw a cowboy out there, Jason Witten.
Rob Gronkowski.
Jeremy Shockey, Gronk. Gronk was definitely another one. Let's see. Where's some other? I mean, Tony Gonzalez was obviously a notable name. I mean, you got like all the tight ends that Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers would throw to, like Jermichael Finley, although he's not necessarily prominent. Bubba Franks, not necessarily as prominent. Of course, I mentioned Jeremy Shockey. And also, consider this, one of the best broadcasters in the NFL today. I completely forgot about this during the first take. My main man announcing wise, Greg Olson was a tight end. I thought you were going
to say Chris Carter, but I feel like Chris Carter was more of a defensive end or like a receiver.
Wait, you're talking Chris Carter as in like the one that eventually became an ESPN analyst? No, that was a wide receiver.
Okay,
yeah. That was a wide receiver for the Vikings. I was talking Greg Olson as far as like on your like watching your TV on a Sunday afternoon. Greg Olson is one of my favorites when it comes to how he analyzes an NFL game and just kind of how he's able to insert things that are also very informative and not only can he entertain the audience, the viewer, he also can educate them and keep them in a very, very interested way.
Is it me or does Greg Olson kind of look like He-Man if he kept his shirt on? And
I
I
could
said,
see
hey,
it.
yeah. Oh god, now we're gonna have the title of the episode being "Is Greg Olson He-Man?" question mark.
I think we're gonna have. I think we've. There is more firepower that is coming later. I guarantee it. This will not be the title.
Damn it, I tried.
Greg Olson. I mean, granted, yeah, Greg Olson could look like He-Man with a haircut, but that's beside the point.
Alright, what's going on with the bat?
What is the not so good? And that is the fan roasting of the Dwayne Wade statue's design that was also curated by Flash himself.
What are you talking about? It's Lawrence Fishburne. Come on now.
If I wanted a statue of Furious Styles from Boys in the Hood, we're watching. It would probably not be in front of Miami's basketball arena.
I think it would have been cooler if they did the iconic photo of Dwayne Wade passing alley-ooping it to LeBron James, where he's like doing the whole like eagle wave or whatever, or like flapping its wings or whatever. That would have been cooler.
The problem is that I think that's a that was not only Dwayne Wade, but it was also LeBron James. And honestly, I don't consider LeBron James's time in Miami as iconic enough to do that as the statue.
What do you mean? We're not talking about 1. We're not talking about 2, 3, 4, or 5. But we're talking about 6 or 7? Come on now.
And they only got 2. They only ended up with 2. And one of those you really couldn't even credit to LeBron James. That one was saved by Ray Allen. I think that they chose the right moment for the Dwayne Wade statue. If you really look at it, minus like maybe some shapes that like looking at it like further away, you kind of get that Dwayne Wade's mouth's open. That it would be like Dwayne Wade with his mouth open, like he's screaming. Like he's screaming in height. If you look at it from a distance, you could see that it might be the head of Morpheus. But if you kind of get up close at it and really get a good hard look at it, you could truly see Dwayne Wade in there.
Even payday comes. Like my feeling when payday comes, feel like yeah. All right.
I understand where you were going with that, but you're kind of right now going a little nuttier than a payday bar. If you're picking up what I'm putting down.
That's nuts. Why would you say that? Okay. Let's go into the
downright ugly this week.
Jameis Williams being unable to keep his nose clean of policy violations. And ultimately, in my opinion, he kind of pulled a Frank Clark situation. But instead of an Uzi, it's just a pistol that, yeah. That and the PED violations.
Well, you have... It kind of starts going a little further back with the gambling policy. He was suspended 4 games for that. He started to finally be a prominent receiver in certain extents for the Lions this season. And then gets hit with a 2-game PED violation. And then really, as far as what Jameson Williams' main issue with, is that even though his brother had a concealed weapons permit, Williams had the gun registered to him properly, but did not have a concealed weapon, had the concealed weapons permit, which unfortunately it would have ended up with this issue in the state of Michigan. So it was a lot of things that Jameson Williams had done most of it right, but it just kind of flubbed on one particular thing. And that one particular thing has a probe and a warrant out there for him. Is it going to amount to a suspension? Who knows? Or to a larger suspension? Who knows?
Currently, he's
But
at
I
two
think
games over a PED violation. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, he has 2 games for the PED, but I'm saying like even further suspension, as in more on top of it for the personal conduct policy.
Yeah,
He's already gotten hit. He's already gotten hit for the gambling policy. He's already gotten hit on the substance abuse policy, of the PED and substance abuse policy. Now he's about to take a hit for the a potential hit for the personal conduct policy. And it's almost like Jameson Williams is trying to pull a Lawrence Phillips, but nowhere near as bad. Like a whole bunch of minor issues have just kind of derailed the start of Jameson Williams' career as a professional football player.
I feel like Jameson Williams might get about 4 games added to that suspension, depending on how Goodell and company wants to handle it. Frank Clark, I don't even think he had the gun registered to him with the Uzi that was sitting in a duffel bag, which is even more jank than what Jameson Williams' situation is, because he has it registered.
And how much did Frank Clark get for that?
I think 4 games.
I think that even though most of it was done properly, I would say at worst, Jameson Williams would probably get 2. Probably get another light one, because they're different policies.
The strange thing about the PED thing is when I was looking at different news sources to figure out what exactly he was, they popped him with, and they don't really say anything about it. And he goes into writing on the, with his lawyer or whatever, saying that, let's see here. It says in his statement this week, I was notified by the NFL that I was suspended for a violation of PED policy. The news came as a complete surprise that I'm still trying to understand. I don't take supplements or vitamins, and I am overly cautious about even taking over-the-counter medicine. At no time have I ever taken something in an attempt to cheat or look for an unfair advantage. I understand that I am responsible for everything that goes into my body, and I have to take accountability in this instance. Which is weird. Like, I don't know. I tried looking it up, and everyone is just... I guess it's just... well, actually, that is a load of crap. I was about to say that this was too early, but this article was published 5 days ago. So... there should be more crap coming out from this, but I think they're just keeping it under wraps. But I don't know why you would.
Yeah, it's like maybe that this... yeah, because it's weird. It's weird that he claims his innocence, but he did not drop the appeal.
Okay. I'm looking at this Reddit post for Schefter reporting on the 2-game suspension, and one of the... I think this is a joke, but someone in the Reddit comments asked, I'm confused about what he took, and someone put poppy seed bagel. Anyways,
Oh my gosh. That, like, trolls on the internet are a little much. But do we want to move on to baseball and kind of have a little bit of a small little delay before we get into football mode?
Sounds good to me. Let's get right into it.
All right. And here it is. The World Series. The Yankees and the Dodgers currently lead 3-0 in this series. Game 1, Freddie Freeman hits a grand slam for the Dodgers to take Game 1 in 10 innings. In Game 2, Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, and Tommy Edman all homer to win 4-2. Soto and Stanton had hit home runs, and the Yankees had the bases loaded in the top of the ninth.
Yeah, that was an aneurysm-inducing game right there.
Freeman hits his third home run of the series in Game 3 as a spark plug for a 4-2 victory to put the Yankees at down 3 games. And the Dodgers could very well sweep. And so far, at the time that I'm speaking this, the Dodgers are down 1 in the middle of the 6th inning. They're down 5-4 in the middle of the 6th. I believe our MVP favorite so far is Freddie Freeman. Has his 4th home run of the series, 6th straight World Series game with a home run, a major league record.
As a Yankees fan says, please stop on a sign. Like, please stop doing this.
Yes. But Freddie Freeman is just... his game is just on point. He's on point. And now, the injury concern is Shohei Ohtani's shoulder. Ohtani has still been able to play designated hitter in this, but has been very, very limited in how he has been able to perform after. And I'm sure that he will be going in for surgery right as this wraps up, as it looks like it is to be a separated shoulder.
Yep, and he got that through the eighth inning, stealing second.
In Game 2.
Yep.
And then a player who's kind of not been performing well is Aaron Judge. He struck out a whole bunch this series.
Just in general, he's been kind of rough. He was really only clutch in the championship series against the Guardians, where there were a few games where he took out Class A and hit line drive homers near right field. And that was multiple times, and it wasn't just Stanton doing that either, but Judge helped near the end of that series, but Stanton is lights out.
And at this current point, 3.5 innings remain in Game 4. And we have the rest of this series. What is kind of your hope and expectation for the rest of this series?
I hope that the Dodgers sweep tonight, but it would be nice to see if the Dodgers can win this World Series. Because not only would this be historic for Freddie Freeman, but it would also be a very good time for the Dodgers as a team, because even though people discount them for the 2020 World Series championship, because in a sense it was more so limited because of the season that was withheld in 2020 due to the pandemic. We only had about 60 games, and it was more of like a round robin type of feel for the most part, and no one was really allowed to go to the stadiums because COVID was still on the rise. This was still the very beginnings. It didn't come back till like late July, I believe, or maybe it was late June. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I just remember there weren't any fans, and there were a lot of piped in crowd
Cardboard
noise.
cutout.
Yep, that too. And just, it definitely felt different. And, anyways, that aside, I think it'd be awesome to see the Dodgers get another World Series, have Betts be a 3-time World Series champion, have Shohei in his World Series debut slash postseason first year experience be a World Series win. That'd be awesome. And then Freddie Freeman with his second World Series championship victory. But we'll have to see. Update on the game. Tyler Wells just hit a solo shot to make the game. Or no, Austin Wells, my bad. Austin Wells hit the solo home run, making the game 6-4 now in the bottom of the 6th.
Yep. Yeah, this one has probably been the highest scoring game of the series, truly so far. I'm hoping that the Dodgers don't have to go back to LA, but there's a lot of money in this series. A lot of money spent between the two teams. Viewership has been great. I am just hoping for great consistency from Blues, and the Dodgers win the series in the outset.
Yeah, I do agree with the calls from Blue from the first 2 games. They were very not well done, as you could probably tell. But they're getting a little bit better. But consistency is key when it comes to being a referee and monitoring pitches and doing the right calls. Can't always get it right, but it's best to
at least
get
we're
it.
not dealing with a Angel Hernandez type situation.
Yep, we already threw tomatoes at him earlier in the season.
And I swear that dude is blind.
Stevie Wonder could call a strike better than Angel Hernandez.
Yep.
I said it. Anyways, next.
But now we move on to the second half of the high heat, the Week 8 recap of the NFL season. The first game we're going to talk about here is Philadelphia and Cincinnati, as the Eagles took a 37-17 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. And the question here is this an Eagles team that's for real? Or is this game only a figment of your imagination of what these Eagles can do?
I have a feeling that the Eagles got really lucky in this game. Aren't the Bengals like really beat up on defense, or is their defense just not as great as it once was? Like back in 2021 and 22.
Well, they still have some of the guys that they had. But on top of that, they don't have Dax Hill. They don't have a couple of their other it's the same primary core. It's just the Eagles, I think, are just right now getting healthy and starting to have things come together.
That is for sure, and I think it also helps that not only Devontae Smith came back and is healthy and led a couple touchdowns with Hurts and company, but also Saquon Barkley is showing his true colors, as it seems now.
I'm going to say this. The veteran running back this season is back. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry.
Kareem Hunt.
Oh, yeah, Kareem Hunt now? Like, these aging backs are actually showing prominence because, as what Mel Kiper has wanted to lobby the NFL to ban. The too high safety is forcing teams to start running the football effectively. End result, the Eagles still look dynamic on offense.
The 80s called. They want their hairdo back, Mel Kiper. Anyways.
But the next game we're going to talk about here is the Cleveland Browns defeating the Baltimore Ravens 29-24. And the question is can the Browns show signs of turning their season around now that famous Jameis Winston is now quarterback one?
Let me put this in the most brutal way possible for the Browns. They are literally throwing crap at a fan and hoping that it solves the problem. I think famous Jameis was definitely an upgrade compared to Deshaun Watson, but when you're saying that over a quarterback that when he started coming into the pros was throwing pick sixes after pick six after pick six after pick six with the Buccaneers, and then doing the same exact thing with the Saints, and now is translating that to the Browns, I think you are still a little bit worried, but you're definitely happier that it's not Deshaun Watson that's screwing everything up and getting himself in even worse scenarios and just situations in general on and off the field. I think you gotta take this Browns move with a grain of salt against the Ravens.
And I think the reason why you take it with maybe a little less weight than you normally would is that the biggest thing the Baltimore Ravens did was fumble the bag.
Well, of course, because when you have receivers that are being double or triple covered, it has in the past shown really bad things. And I could point to a game where that was pretty obvious with the AFC Championship game where Deion Bush intercepted Lamar Jackson in a pivotal moment of the game that could have gotten them closer to the Chiefs, but ended up putting the icing on the cake at the end. But
No,
yeah,
I'm talking more of there were 3 interceptions that the Ravens could have had, especially Kyle Hamilton near the end, where they just could not put the Browns away. And you know what happens when you start letting a team hang around for too long? They're going to figure out a way to come back and beat you. And we're going to have that happen again here multiple times later. But at least one more time later. But this is one where Baltimore just they were not able to put the Browns away due to somebody having a little too much popcorn.
someone clogged
Because
the
they
toilet.
have butter on their fingers. Because they had butter on their fingers.
Looks like Lamar Jackson clogged the toilet. Usually he's crapping his pants, but this time he just couldn't. The toilet just couldn't flush.
Unnecessary. I was more so saying that I was putting this one on the Ravens secondary and defense for not being able to secure footballs that were in their hands and ready to be intercepted.
I got what you were putting down. I just wanted to put my little spice on it, but obviously that spice was a little too spicy.
It was not the right note. It was not the right bit of flavor for for this.
It was
And the
cinnamon
next
instead
one-
of sriracha. Anyways, let's keep going.
And the next one here is the Patriots beating the Jets 25-22. And the question here is, who really is to blame for the downward spiral of the Jets, Jets, as they head into the midseason?
Well, folks, this is your captain speaking, and I think there's gonna be a little bit of light turbulence, but we'll more than likely get through it, and then get you on your destination very safe and sound. That would be what I would say if I was the captain of the Jets, but in reality, it's ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some heavy turbulence and might have to crash land into the Hudson River, and yeah, have a good night. Also, here's some airbags to breathe in to calm you down a little bit. Anyways, bye. That was probably
But where
it's
are you
crash
assessing?
landing.
Where are you assessing the blame?
I am assessing the blame on the ayahuasca, or should I say bad ayahuasca, that Aaron Rodgers had the past couple of games with the Jet. Because the game that Devontae Adams debuted, not so great. This game against the Patriots, alright, but still not so great when you're losing against a team that had a concussed Drake May and still couldn't get the job done.
Here's where I'm going to go with this. I think there's a root. When you're necessarily like dealing with like a certain problem, and
Like crappy
granted,
coworker.
not necessarily, but it's like a problem that kind of is something that it's like it becomes a there's a long-standing problem, and sometimes that the real problem of it is to uproot and get the root of and take the problem at its root rather than trying to just prune the outside. I think this is exactly what the Jets have right now. The front office of the Jets, in Woody Johnson, Joe Douglas, I believe they are the pieces of this puzzle that have caused the problem, because they invested in Aaron Rodgers at a point when Aaron Rodgers was at the very latter stages of his career, tears his Achilles, and the amount of delusion is going on in the front office saying, "Oh, we're a quarterback away." Yeah, right.
Green Bay Jets.
You are saying this with the full expectation that your defense is still 100% capable of stepping up and holding its weight and being able to keep the score down to have the Jets. Has that been the case? Nope. You spent too much time investing in a quarterback who probably at this point should have retired after tearing his Achilles. You now have traded for a wide receiver who, granted, is also on the backside of his career, yet you don't But yet, yes, you have two prominent wide receivers now that you decided to trade for Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams more in household name. Garrett Wilson in terms of performance as a draft pick. You've got Breece Hall in the backfield, who's been great, who's generally been really good for the Jets. But yet Breece Lightning can't burn up the quarter mile because Aaron Rodgers is too busy throwing the football into bad situations, resulting in turnovers that the Jets shouldn't necessarily be dealing with. Forcing the defense to be out on the field sooner than what they expect, and putting the green team, putting Gang Green and MetLife in even further bad situations and better positions for them to lose football games rather than win them. Ulbrich will not become the head coach. I believe that the whole coaching staff house will be purged with the next coach. Aaron Rodgers should hang it up, and the Jets should just blow up the quarterback situation that they have right now and start the whole thing over when it comes to their quarterback. It's like, yeah, you're like, oh, quarterback away. No. You thought you were a quarterback away. Now you're still a quarterback away because the Jets cannot manage to be able to keep a quarterback that is relevant for a long period of time. It's basically that the Jets are a plane that basically has so much damage to the engines that they are just straight up crashing right now. And it's a crash landing that probably has already happened with the crash landing, but it's taken some heavy damage and has even left a couple people's coaching careers destroyed in their wake, as Robert Saleh is now a special assistant for the Green Bay Packers. He gets fired for the Jets and ends up still managing to get a job shortly after. What's wrong with this picture has to be at a root much deeper than the pruning of the players and the lower ends of the totem pole that they have. The branches, you kind of have to take it from the roots that are bringing that are sending the not so great nutrients of bad decisions involving quarterbacks and other things to the forefront. Let's move on to the next
one.
Yes. I'm like, let's move on to the next one. And it is a four-parter. The Cardinals defeat the Dolphins 28-27. The Rams beat the Vikings 30-20. The Bills defeat the Seahawks 31-10. And the 49ers take down the walking accident waiting to happen Dallas Cowboys 30-24.
What do you mean they're walking? I feel like they're limping and one of the legs is just like barely bending, and it's like almost like a zombie walk.
I was referring to, of course, that notable quote from Stephen A. Smith of saying that the Dallas Cowboys are a walking accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, I know.
But the question here is more so, is the NFC West coming down to who kind of wants to make it into the playoffs less?
I think that assessment is valid on both the Cowboys and the Cardinals. but mostly the Cardinals, because no one really knows their true identity and what's and how far they're gonna get. Is that
I'm
fair?
going to say this. I think the assessment is more so it's going to come down to which of the. I think the Cardinals are probably the irrelevant piece in this. They're 4-4 right now. They have the division lead because they beat the 49ers head to head. But the 49ers have been battered with injuries. But now they're about to have potentially Christian McCaffrey return. The Rams had dealt with a whole bunch of injuries in their wide receiver room. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are preparing to return. The Seahawks are just primarily dealing with the DK Metcalf injury. And of course, underperformances at times from Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And Geno Smith has not really looked like himself again this season. So honestly, if you want to put it into a sense, it's just a matter of which team is going to be healthy and survive. This division of the NFC West shows that I don't think there's truly going to be a winner. It's just truly who is going to be able to survive and weather the storm the best. And right now, if you really wanted to kind of look at it, I think the favorite is the Los Angeles Rams right now.
Yeah, that's for sure. Because they also had a rumor last week where there were potential trade talks of Matthew Stafford getting traded to the Vikings to fill their quarterback void, even though Sam Darnold's been doing pretty damn good. There was also a rumor about Cooper Kupp with Kansas City, but ended up not happening because we didn't want to take his big cap hit, and also he's very injury prone.
I also was going to throw this out there. I think the Rams passed up because they beat the Vikings. Because they beat the Vikings 30-20 and have now put themselves back into relevance. Cooper Kupp was instantaneously yanked off the table after the win. Cooper Kupp was on the table probably going into that game, but once Friday morning hit and the Rams won that game, just say, get back over here. We got a division to win. And the last game we are going to speak on was probably the best one out of the bunch.
Noah Brown!
The Commanders defeating the Bears 18-15 on a Hail Mary. Did this game live up to the hype, anticipation, and build-up?
I think it was one of those games where you thought, okay, Bears definitely for sure were probably going to win this, and I was wondering why the hell the the comeback video was so long, and I'm like, oh, the Commanders are gonna beat the Bears in overtime, and it's like, well, no, they're still in the fourth quarter and not looking too good for the Commanders. And then Jaden Daniels just says, all right, he pulls a good old play out of Mahomes' book saying, F it, Tyreek Hill will be down there somewhere, but it wasn't Tyreek Hill. It was one of those moments where you think, okay, maybe the someone in that pile of people is going to catch it randomly and get it. But none of those guys got it, but it was the guy in the back that caught it off a deflection, and that man is former Texan Noah Brown. I thought that was insane.
I've got more. I am keeping a lot of this as far as the how and the why for later. But I saw that play happen and I was amped. I saw that, I was like, oh. Then all of a sudden I just saw the ball ricochet and Noah Brown's right there in the back. And I'm like, yes. But the build up. You got number 1 pick versus number 2 pick of the draft. Both teams were excelling. You got Jim Nantz and Tony Romo in the CBS booth for this one. The best slot as far as the national TV exposure for this game, especially for all of the East Coast that already had games earlier that day. And these two teams delivered on an amazing
Go ahead, sorry.
On an amazing back and forth game that the defenses stepped up, did their thing. The offenses were able to kind of ease into the game and kind of drive their way. And ultimately, the instant classic finish. This game had everything. This game had everything that you wanted for a bunch of hype or a bunch of heartbreak, depending on which side of the fence you lied or you were on. This delivered.
Do you think it was kind of well, not really even equivalent, but do you think it has about the same feel as when the Bills and Chiefs would face off in the playoffs, or do you think it was more of a story of its own path?
It is a very unique scenario. It is, but it also isn't. If you're kind of picking up what I'm putting out.
Yes.
You've got these two teams in the NFC who were absolutely horrible a year ago.
Yep.
Who weren't good a year ago. These quarterbacks have turned their programs around and have played excellently this season. When the Chiefs got Patrick Mahomes, were they necessarily in a season of turnaround? The first word
no.
the first two words I was going to throw at you was not exactly. The Bills were kind of in a little more of had to reconstruct when they drafted Josh Allen. The Bears were basically just a quarterback dumpster fire because they didn't know how to properly handle their quarterback with Justin Fields. And I think that this game...
that was Mitch Trubisky.
Even Mitchell Trubisky. Yeah, that's true. And then there were a few games last year where they had my boy Tyson Bagent take over, start a few games, look all right. He's still QB2 there. But overall, I'm saying that this game did exactly what it was supposed to do. It was like that one play, like those last couple of playoff games with the Chiefs, where it's come down to the complete and absolute wire. Like, this game has an instant classic type of feel to it. And it did. And it did exactly what we wanted. Now that we've gone over the games of the past, let's talk about the games that are ahead in the film room. A perfect week for me last week jumped me over the 100-point hold that Ruckus should soon see himself. As it is 106 to 88 right now in favor of your boy. And now, the first game on the prediction radar for a nickel of points. Ohio State, Penn State.
I'm taking the Buckeyes.
I am taking the team that dots the I. They're on the road in Happy Valley, which makes this a little bit more difficult. But I think that Ohio State will be able to get it done because I believe that they are one of the very few teams in the nation that can rattle Penn State enough to be able to get that done. I'm taking the Buckeyes here.
All right.
Next game involves the SEC. And that is the world's largest cocktail party. Florida versus Georgia.
Gators and dogs. I'm picking the dogs for this one. Because they're absolute dogs. I was hoping that you did that with me, but that's okay. That's okay.
Or I should say it is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party is what they call it.
Yep.
Yep, and I also am going with them. Dogs. As I'm taking Georgia over Florida in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Next up, we have Pitt versus SMU.
I'm taking Pitt.
I'm taking SMU at home. Taking SMU at home. SMU is currently the 75 or 7.5 point favorite, especially because this game is at home. And this is a really interesting ACC matchup, and both of them are pretty closely ranked. And last but not least in the Big Ten, Oregon versus Michigan.
I'm going to take Michigan. Go Wolverines.
Quack. 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 I'm taking the Ducks. The number one team with Dylan Gabriel. Oregon looks really good.
Quack.
And they've transitioned themselves over to the Big Ten pretty well. So I am taking Oregon here. And in the NFL, we have the Broncos and Ravens.
I'm picking the Ravens. More offensive weapons, and the Broncos are just not it this season for me.
The Ravens just got Deontay Johnson in a trade. So that is a very interesting second wide receiver weapon for Lamar Jackson. It adds a little bit of pressure to that Broncos secondary headline by a Patrick Surtain that will definitely be able to keep number one wide receivers in check. Denver's had a pretty good pass. Denver's been really good defensively this season. But the biggest thing that the Ravens can do is stop the run, which means they're going to make Bo Nix one-dimensional. Bo Nix has played better, but I think the Baltimore Ravens should be able to hang on to those interceptions a little bit more, or at least those opportunities a little bit more. I'm going to take the Ravens here in this one. The next one here is the Chicago Bears and the Arizona Cardinals.
I'm going to be taking the Bears.
I also am taking the Bears here. And our big three-pointer for the game of the week, the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers.
I'm taking Motor City Dan Campbell all the way against the Packers.
I'm actually taking Detroit as well here. Jordan Love has an injury again, but I don't think if they had to turn to Malik Willis at this point, I don't think they'll be so I don't think Malik Willis will be so lucky. As the Lions defense, even without Hutch, is still pretty darn good. I'm taking the Lions. The Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks.
I have more faith in Geno than I do on Matthew Stafford. I'm going Seahawks.
I think it will come down to the health of DK Metcalf. And I don't know if DK will be healthy enough for this one, even with an MCL sprain. But I think that the Rams, especially with having Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp back, and Kyron Williams being able to do his thing as well to offset, especially now that Kupp and Nacua are back, I'm going to take the Rams here. Indianapolis Colts and the Minnesota Vikings.
I'm taking the Vikings because they have the better momentum going into this game versus the Colts. And the Colts have just been kind of a wild card. And even though they're bringing back Joe Flacco, I don't know if that's going to be enough to stop the Vikings secondary.
Skull. 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 I am taking the Vikings here. And last but not least, we both know where we're going here. Chiefs, Bucks. And then we are going with the Chiefs.
The Kansas City Chiefs! Hell yeah.
I just think that Tampa, though Baker Mayfield has relevance with being able to do a little more dink and dunk with Rachaad White and company. Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, and I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to do a really good job of seeing through that.
Well, they also lost Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Godwin's out for the year. Evans is out for a couple weeks.
Yeah, Evans is out for a couple more weeks here, and I think that once Mike Evans comes back, I think the Bucks could eventually be okay, but it may be too little too late as far as winning the NFC South. And now we are going to close out this episode with our stud and dud of the week. Ruckus, do you think?
All right, my stud for the week is Jack Flaherty of the Los Angeles Dodgers, starting pitching, channeling his inner self and also channeling Johnny Cueto with excellent pitching in the big moment. Looking very fly compared to the times he was with the Cardinals and the Orioles and whatever, but he's really turned it around. And Cueto, he really turned it around after going from the Cincinnati Reds to the Kansas City Royals in 2015 and shined through the postseason. Flaherty did about the same. But my dud for this week is Anthony Richardson leaving the game after the third quarter, and Uncle Joe came in for a play. And this foreshadows to now me telling you that Joe Flacco is back starting for the Colts, which also makes us a bigger dud for Richardson.
And I am going to say this now as far as fantasy football owners go. If you are an owner of a Colts receiver, if Anthony Richardson was in the lineup, you definitely were not going to want him in there. You may have a little more pull in there now with Joe Flacco there, but this game this week, probably good matchups for it, but I own none of them, so I don't need to worry about it. Haha. But my stud this week for this involves Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts for being able to improvise and still make mismatched cleats look good and not have a fine on top of that following a shoe malfunction of a double knot. The final result was that he had to call a timeout and eventually swap out one of his cleats. So he went out there briefly with one green cleat and one white cleat. He even had to pep talk an equipment staffer who was beating himself up over the accident. And I think for me, just Jalen Hurts being considerate of that and realizing that, okay, this may look weird, but it actually didn't look horrible. The only thing that was kind of bad about it was that the green cleat was not quite the same, like, dark green. It was more of the Kelly green, so the mismatch kind of looked a little weird with that. But if it would have been like a green cleat and a white cleat and just a solid all-white cleat, it probably would have been fire. And I think there could have been a signature branding of those Air Jordan PE4s that Hurts was wearing as a signature mismatch cleat edition, and people would eat that up like hotcakes. My dud this week goes back to the Hail Mary. Ultimately, the Chicago Bears defense on the final two plays that resulted in the touchdown drive. Jaden Daniels gets a quick little out route to Terry McLaurin. But then, as the final play is being set up, Chicago Bears cornerback Tyreek Stevenson is chirping over at the sideline, taunting fans, and having his back turned to the formation during the last play of the game. It took him just over 4 seconds to realize, oh crap, something's going on. And he is having to make a sprint all the way across the field. Gets there. Misses his assignment, of which what Matt Bowen would call a savior in the back. Missed that assignment. He gets into the pile of bodies that's tipping the ball. Noah Brown doesn't jump. So Tyreek Stevenson, you normally want to try and swat this ball downward. Because if it goes out one side, Terry McLaurin's there. If it goes out the other side, Luke McCaffrey's probably to the side. Luke McCaffrey's being there. And I believe they also had De'Ami Brown in on the play as well. But this ball gets tipped up and goes backwards and right into the hands of Noah Brown. All because Tyreek Stevenson is making a sprint all the way across and gets his hand a little more straight up than where it should have been. It goes through the hand and ricochets backward. All because he delayed himself in talking trash to fans on the sideline on the opposite side for 4 seconds too long. And it probably really was even worse than that. As man, you had a whole bunch of people bashing him. Dan Orlovsky, Rex Ryan, Stephen A. Smith. This dude was in for a rough film session upon his return to Chicago. And man, it is warranted. As a Commanders fan, I should be just celebrating the fact of a win. But man, you realize that there are some times where what goes around, finds its way back around.
What goes around comes around.
This is, yeah. But I was doing the Justin Timberlake thing. I just didn't go into the falsetto on it.
What goes around, goes around, goes around, goes around, comes back around. Yeah.
Yep. This is exactly what happened with Tyreek Stevenson. And he was even apologizing and eating all the kinds of problems. Because you did what you did. And Eberflus was even saying that it's like, oh, the 13 yards that they picked up on the out route didn't necessarily matter because it was all going to come down to the last play. Man, analysts were even criticizing that. So the entire last drive sequence for the Bears and their lack of attention to detail when it comes to that just screamed that the Commanders were going to win that game because they were locked in and left no stone unturned. And that is great praise to Dan Quinn for being able to keep all 53 members of that football team invested. Ruckus, take us out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a Ruckus and The Menace Sports Podcast production, episode number 120. This is Ruckus Always Causing a Ruckus.
Menace the Menace.
And we'll see you guys next time. Deuces.